The Municipality of the County of Colchester's Council Committee meeting of December 11th, 2025. I will ask our CAO for roll call, please.
Thank you very much. So we will start with the chair, Deputy Mayor Sanderson.
Present?
Mayor Blair.
Present.
Councillor Weatherby.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Councillor Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Leggett.
Present.
Councillor Martell.
Present.
Councillor Patton.
Present.
Councillor Benoit.
Present.
Councillor Fletcher.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy has sent his regrets to have quorum.
Thank you, CAO. And I will turn it over to our CAO and the mayor for a very important part of our meeting tonight, the service recognition. All these wonderful people that have gathered here tonight.
Oh, very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So tonight is an opportunity to recognize all the folks here who really are the backbone of everything you do. And so when you have your name called out, please come up. Mayor has a service recognition award for you. Be an opportunity to take some pictures, or if anybody with you wants to take some pictures, please come up and take them. For those who don't want pictures, let us know. We'll go from there. So we're going to start off with Kate and Wesley.
You, that's fine.
Dale Hagable.
This is 10 years.
Deo in, I think.
Is that right? Nice, nice.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Ten years from now. Upstairs.
Gary Garcia.
I'm a 10-year recipient.
Dave George.
In 10 years, ladies. Congratulations.
Stephen Todd.
In 10 years, Stephen.
That's cute.
You're taking the dad? Come on,
You go to that.
It's like his dad.
have a matching pair?
Twin.
That's great.
Rebecca McLean.
It's 15 years.
There you go.
Might as well.
Thank you for all your work. Nice to meet you.
The guy who keeps us safe from ourselves, Tim Smith.
15 years, wow.
IT person, and I gotta tell you, we need them. Congratulations again. Thank you.
And Glenn Frank.
And Glenn has 20 years.
Jessica Rushton.
Jessica, 20 years, Jessica. Wonderful.
And now. William McKenzie, equipment operator, 30 years.
Oh.
And Dave might need a forklift. So tonight we have a few folks who are not in attendance. Lee Benoit, 5 years. Andrew Lockerbie, 5 years. Evangeline Pascal, 5 years. Kelsey Laking, 10 years. Krista Mont, 20 years. Krista Morrissey, 20 years. Sean Stewart, 20 years. And Dave Westlake, 25 years. So thank you all.
Thank you. So you're not, we're not going to expect you to stay for the rest of the meeting. If you want, you're certainly welcome to, but we're just going to give a little bit of time now before we start our meeting to, if you want to leave, to clear the room.
Yes, please.
They're all leaving. I'm surprised they're leaving. Not.
Couple that think have to be polite and stay.
Yes, I know, and then they leave.
I would be the person.
If nobody tells them they can get. We put our order in.
I've won, so not a big. Maybe.
I get up and run.
baby.
Okay.
Is she at the hospital?
Uh,
There a few times.
Oh.
All right, I guess we can begin. In peace and in friendship and in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. I acknowledge that the municipality of Colchester is in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq. You have an agenda before you. Are there any additions to the agenda? Not seeing any. If none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Patton, seconded by Councillor Weatherby. All in favor, say aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion carries. You also have the minutes of the November 3rd and the November 11th meetings in your package. Is anybody prepared to make a motion? Moved by Councillor Cooper to approve the minutes. Seconded by Councillor Patton. All in favor, say aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion carries. Thank you. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Nothing? Okay, we'll move on to our action items. And before we begin, I'd just like to remind our mayor and councillor that this is our meeting, an opportunity to hear information needed to make decisions. In addition to the briefing materials provided, our CAO and solicitor and staff are here to answer any questions you may have. I'd like to welcome those of you in the gallery who have joined us this evening, as we have an item on the agenda that has generated a fair bit of public interest. I'd like to remind everyone of our meeting guidelines. As per our council proceedings policy, we ask that all visitors who are not council members, municipal staff, or pre-approved by council to speak to please remain quiet and respectful while observing the meeting. Thank you all, and I appreciate your cooperation. So the action item that we will deal with first is item number 6, addition to Millbrook Reserve. And who's going to take this? I guess this is for our solicitor, Dennis, please.
Thank you, council. So this was a request initially that came to council in 2019, and it's just recently coming back to council on a fairly technical point. In terms of the request tonight, it's to formally waive what is documented as a possible road reserve. And we've set out in the briefing to council the background. So council's already through a letter in 2019, which you have in front of you, has endorsed the addition to Millbrook Reserve of certain parcels of land that are held by a numbered company, which is owned by Millbrook First Nation. They do generate revenue, tax revenue, a fairly modest amount, but they do. At the time, council asked for further information, and there was a discussion with Chief Glode and other council representatives as to the purpose of the expansion. And as I recall, the purpose of the expansion from the band council's perspective was for economic development and also housing needs. That housing, the population in Millbrook is growing and they're running out of space. And so they went through the process. Now the process is quite involved. The municipality is to be consulted, but it has no formal legal right other than consultation. Some of the factors that are taken into account in the addition, it can't just be to avoid property taxes. It has to be for things like housing, economic development, and ultimately the cabinet or the minister will decide. So is my understanding from recent discussion with council, legal counsel for the band council, is that the addition is likely to be formalized within the year. This request comes to you because of title search that was done in advance of that. We've explained that it's a textual qualification. It appears to be sort of a historic note, but no actual indication that there is any road on site that would affect the municipality. We have reviewed the situation with the Director of Community Development and your Manager of Planning Services. And we are in agreement that there's nothing there to release, but they do need a formal release in order that they can clear up title and proceed with the migration that's necessary to complete the addition process. Often with options, often with council motions, you get options. So I suppose the option is not to grant it. But in our view, that there's really nothing being waived or released other than a technicality of a road reserve that needs to be cleared off title so that the migration can proceed. So happy to answer any questions about the item that council may.
Thank you, Dennis. I'll look for a motion. Mayor Blair, please.
Thank you. I'm through the chair. I'm prepared to put a motion on the floor. I move that council committee recommend to council that it provide a release to Millbrook First Nation, confirming that no road reservation exists on PID number 202065595.
Thank you. We have a seconder for that. Councillor Weatherby. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Sorry, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You to Dennis, please.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just to clarify that, for Dennis. So who, like, the township plan, like, who would have authority over something like that? Trying to figure it out. That's what township plan apparently put this there.
Yeah,
Township plan, where would that come from? Like,
well, that would have been, it's in a historic documents. It set out designation of parcels. You know, you have to understand, I'm reliant on the conveyancing group in our department to detail this. But my understanding is historically the township plans would have been devised by surveyors working with government to set aside where lots are. And that goes back historically in the title of many of our properties around here.
okay, so they would have set up that for roads that they thought would be there and something like that.
Well, notionally, where roads could go, but in effect, there's nothing on the ground. Hmm.
So there's no way anybody really can come back and say later on, but they want to force that. Is there any way anybody can force that at some point?
No, it's sort of as I said, it's a textual qualification that a surveyor put on when he was looking at a subdivision plan, and he noted it. It doesn't appear to have any ownership interest, and to the extent that there's a potential of residual interest, it would be with the municipality, and that's why the municipality's being asked to waive any
Okay, so
potential interest in the road.
We'd be like,
That's my
all
understanding,
right,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Any further questions, discussion? So,
Call for the question.
question has been called, and we'll put it up on the screen. Turn on your devices. Clickers. Voting is open. Voting is closed. It's unanimous in favor of the motion. Thank you, everyone. Okay, next item on the agenda, number 7, is new governance model for the RECC, the Rath East Link Community Center. And Dennis, you're going to walk us through this one, I believe.
Move to the presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This has been an issue that's been before council on numerous occasions. And I can certainly say, Deputy Mayor, through you to council, that for the years I've been at council, it's without parallel, without precedent in terms of the challenges that have been going on for about 4 years. This is not a new issue. It's not a new argument. And I just want to go back to the bylaws. Remind people of the history that was walked here. Seeing it, so the memorandum of association for the society had two focus. One was for the management of the RECC, and one was for fundraising for the RECC. And that's what the original intention was when it was started. And the discussion that we're having today carried through starting really in 2021 almost. It's December of 2021. And we set out in sort of chronology of things that have led to what brings us here today, and in terms of the municipalities evaluating the management of the RECC. It was 4 years ago this month that the Farm Loan Board issued an RFP seeking expressions of interest to enter into a lease and operating agreement to manage provincial exhibition grounds. That was not within the scope of the society. There was a proposal submitted with executive approval, but without board approval. This council learned about it indirectly and wanted to take steps to understand what was going on. Once the municipality understood what was being proposed, it indicated to the society that the proposal was out of scope and not authorized by the memorandum of association or the bylaws, and not contemplated within the operating agreement. I see in the handout that I misspelled Rob's name. And so maybe in 10 years, Anna Marie will be spelling Dan Trake or something. You know, it's Rob Simons. And I remember there was a discussion, a meeting, certainly that I attended in February 22. It was a very heated meeting when the issue of the limitations on the society in relation to the proposed exhibition grounds took place. I've included a copy of the proposal just so that everybody is aware from its origins and the concern that council has access to the material. We completed our work in trying to build this chronology and provide the information so you can look at it yourself last evening. And it was reviewed by Dan and distributed this morning. I know it's a lot of information, but a lot of it we've gone over in the past. I can tell you through the spring of 2022 that there was a desire and a continuation of the society, notwithstanding the municipality's concerns, to continue to have a discussion to proceed with the proposal. And where am I looking for tabs here? Tracy, is there tabbing here? Or bookmark, I'm looking. So the municipality objected to being involved with the lease and operation of the Nova Scotia Provincial Exhibition grounds. That was strenuously stated by the representatives of the town, of the time. The town's position at the beginning was not, I think it was willing to allow the discussion and to see what this could look like. Go ahead. I think that's a fair summary. And this letter was issued that the society was awarded the RFP, which is a problem because it wasn't within scope, wasn't within the mandate of the society, and the municipality objected. The municipality was concerned, to be clear, and wanted to be on the record and discuss this on April 28th, and by unanimous motion, authorized under negotiations RECC, that motion. Mayor be instructed and authorized to send a letter to the chair and members of the Central Nova Civic Center Society, thanking the volunteer time. Municipality does not support the proposal by the general manager of the RECC to the Farm Loan Board on February 4th. Further, the municipality does not support amending the memorandum of association for the society to broaden the mandate, amending the memorandum with the town to allow for the changed mandate, or amend the current operating agreement. So there are three governance documents involved. One is the memorandum of association and bylaws. One is the operating agreement with the RECC, and one is the memorandum of understanding between the town and the municipality. So the municipality, the council of the day, was very concerned that this was going to head. Council of the day had no interest in being the operator or the lessor of the Provincial Exhibition Commission, and didn't want the society to be involved in that as part of its mandate. It was concerned that the society continue to focus on the mandate of running the RECC, which is substantial undertaking, as you all know far better than I do. This is a letter that followed on council direction that the mayor. And I start off there because if there's any notion that somehow this is a new issue, it's not a new issue. It's an issue that's repeated now, and frankly, it's taken up a lot of time of council over 4 years. I don't go to the board meetings. I've gone to one or two. My understanding after this letter was sent is that the board continued to discuss it, and a compromise was to refer the matter to a technical review committee to look at the lease and operational agreement. Technical review committee was the CEO or the general manager / CEO of the society. The two CAOs, so Rob Simons and Mike Dolter. The two directors of corporate services, so Scott, I believe it was Bonnie Coulter at the time, Scott, and the two legal counsel, Charles Thompson and myself. In advance, this memo was prepared by Jennifer Upham. She kindly put my name on it. Keep the old guy happy, and broke down for council the purpose of the lease and the operating agreement and the risks involved. This was circulated in advance. A meeting took place shortly after this memo, so in September, took place in the upper boardroom of the RECC with the people I mentioned in attendance. there was an apology from the general manager to the group saying that he didn't understand the full expansion of the risks. And from my understanding and awareness, subject to correction of anybody who would have been on the board at the time, the matter basically went dormant until the following spring. That it wasn't an active discussion at the board. The next time it was picked up is in around April. And there had obviously been some discussions. And this is the email that came. So it refers to the technical review committee that I just described to you. And this was an updated proposed scope for event management services. With the emphasis that the scope of these services do not expose the RECC to financial risk for the designated events, nor does the RECC take on the financial liabilities associated with harness racing and/or property management. An annual management fee of $120,000 would be paid to the RECC by Perennia to compensate for the described event management, expertise, overnight, and delivery. And then he goes on and comments about the revenue stream, which strengthen the financial sustainability of the RECC. My recollection is that council accepted it in terms of, as it's stated here, that it would avoid their concerns about being responsible for the operation and the property management of the provincial exhibition grounds, and that it would be a fundraising source on a no risk basis. And that's what was proposed to council in 23. So there was a change. Council considered the matter and authorized council committee at a joint council meeting, or council at a joint council meeting, to make a decision. And you'll see under legal matter on April 27th, 2023, that a special joint council meeting be scheduled for 5 p.m. on May 11th, and that a regular council committee meeting be delayed by 1 hour to begin at 7 p.m. Council committee be granted authority at their meeting on May 11th to make a decision regarding the RECC proposal and the Central Nova Civic Center bylaw, carried unanimously. My recollection is based on the description of the Perennia agreement that we just reviewed. The council was prepared to hear and consider this as an alternative to try to find some sort of compromise or middle ground. This is the agreement, and it does everything that that email said it did. Simply provides for consulting, effectively consulting services. It's a 1-year agreement for event management. And then it talked about a new month to month, talks about the price, total amount payable to the contractor, not exceeding $120,000. Termination of the agreement. That's the terms. That's what council signed on to, frankly. You'll see that this was signed in May. This is actually before the amendments were made, but nonetheless, this is the agreement that was represented. So a services only, not operating the place and proceeding on that basis. As a result of joint council, direction was given by both councils to proceed with that limited proposal. And you'll see on May 16th, in advance of a special meeting to the board, that the CEO provided it with the description will enable the authority to explore new revenue generating initiatives via third-party management partnerships occurring off-site at RECC property within Truro, Colchester. And there are the amendments that followed. So a meeting was held. So a meeting of the society means a meeting of the board of directors. And it means including, so everybody who's named, whether they're elected council or not, they're a member. And then the town and the municipality can appoint one additional person in addition to their 2 members on the board, and that's a members meeting. So this was passed unanimously. It says such services, so professional services to third parties to increase revenue for operations. Such services are limited to event planning and management within the geographic areas, and the terms and conditions of any such contract are unanimously approved by the directors, who are also members of the council, Municipality of Colchester, and the town of Truro. So those are the amendments that were made. The amendments did not include property management or operation of the RECC. And then you go to the operating agreement, and a number of things were put into place to support that. And that's what was attached to that CEO email that we saw. So the operating agreement, to show you that the amendments signed by the mayor on the instruction of council, CEO on the instruction of council, mayor and acting CEO of Truro. I understand that to be the signatures of Raj Makar and Melanie Lane on behalf of the society. So those were all signed, and the operating agreement was put in place at the instruction of this council, because council was very concerned about mission creep. There's a lot of discussion about where this will go. So there had to be very clear what would happen in terms of the contract. So these are put into place. It says no contract to provide professional services to third parties shall be entered into by the operating organization except with the approval of the board of directors, which must include the unanimous approval of the directors of the operating organization who are also members of the respective councils. Prior to any request, the draft contract to be submitted for approval must be provided the directors in advance with adequate time to enable such directors to seek input from respective councils. And there was a reason for that this council instructed, and it was at the joint meeting, these are the discussions, this was approved by Truro. It was a reason in there because they wanted not to be caught in a situation. There was frankly concern that given that the RFP was submitted without approval of the board and was learned about indirectly, that they wanted to make sure it couldn't happen again. That was counsel of the day. So it's a requirement of the operating agreement that any contracts have to be approved in adequate time to be reviewed by the respective councils. That this contracts could only be for 1 year. So the Prinny agreement you looked at earlier was 1 year. And they said the renewal would be the option of the society. And it can only be done if they provide a written analysis to the councils so that the impact of the contract to the operations of the RECC are not impacted. And that was the biggest concern of council. It's all well and good to go out and try to manage these other events, but at the end of the day, it was the council's concern was about the integrity of the management of the RECC, which was a significant undertaking. So they wanted that safeguard put into place as a condition of their approval of the bylaws. Then they went further and said no such contract and arrangements shall impose any liability on the operating organization for costs or liability beyond the payment for services. For greater certainty, under no circumstances shall the operating organization personally commit to or personally guarantee any financial obligations or contracts with third parties related to the third party event. Additionally, in any contractual arrangement, the operating organization shall be indemnified by the third party in the provision of services with adequate insurance coverage provided by the third party. So all those things were embedded as part of a compromise to say, look, if we're concerned, we think the RECC is a significant undertaking, a multi-million-dollar building that's critical to this community. We don't want to get diverted, is what council was saying at the time, and those councillors who were on the table, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm paraphrasing. So make sure it's tightly controlled and it can't get away from us. And that's the operating. So that's the only amendment to the operating agreement and the bylaws that were made. And no subsequent request came from any board to change that to enable signing of the lease and the operational agreement that were subsequently entered into in May of 2024. So, and I know there's discussions, and council's entitled to be fully informed. Minutes are there to review, and we pointed out in the chronology area discussions and people debating and saying who knew what in 2024. But what I had not found, and I've not been told, and if there is, then obviously it's considered, I have never seen a motion of the board with the contracts that met the conditions of the operating agreement sent in advance. And you have to understand, I think respectfully, Deputy, that the lease and operating agreement that were signed in May of 2024 were identical or near identical to the lease and operating agreement in 2022 that was rejected by this municipality and not included in the memorandum of association and bylaws, and not permitted by the operating agreement. There's been never a presentation to this council asking for further amendments to the memorandum of bylaw and association or the operating agreements to enable that. Nor has any councillor put a motion on the table, to my knowledge, to do that. The only motion on the table, two motions on the table that continue to speak to this issue, is the one of 22 says we're not interested in amending our bylaws to lease and operate the provincial exhibition, and a year later saying we will amend the bylaws to do this event management services. So when the municipality speaks of unauthorized contracts, they are unauthorized contracts, because even in a scenario, and I'm not going to debate the scenario of what the board did or did not approve in 2024, the information that was provided to the two CEOs at the end of March 28th, when they met to give the default letter with the president, past president, and the treasurer, the executive, is that they had not seen the contracts. They did provide, and council was told, feedback on the chronology that we presented back then, to the effect that the money was being talked about, basically that the suggestion that there was an awareness on the board level, but they did not correct in the chronology or state that that was wrong, that they had not seen the contracts. I'm told by the two CEOs that they had not seen the contracts, the lease and the operating agreement before they were signed. A simple call would have indicated that these are the same lease and operating agreements that were turned down 2 years ago, and you need to come back to council if you want to change the scope and amend the operating agreement to entitle. So I've included for your 2023 and 2024, I don't go to board meetings, as you know, except for a couple. And I've looked through there. I've seen no indication that those contracts, any of the contracts that are either the lease or the operational agreement, I'm prepared to be stand corrected, but I've not seen any motion. Now, there are references, and I've outlined those in the chronology, and I want to take you to them. And I want to take you to them because you, council, know that I've already reported to you that it was said by a couple of people on the interim board that somehow I had misstated or misrepresented or misled the issue of knowledge. So I wanted you to read yourself aspects of the minutes of 2024 that could possibly be looked to and said, well, the board knew what was going on. And you can reach your own conclusions. But if you go to the chronology on page 6 and 7, I set out those aspects in there's nothing in 2023. Those aspects in 2024, where someone may say, well, the information was before the board. Which I had two responses. Doesn't matter that it was before the board. It was at a scope. The board had no authority. And even if people made mistakes, and I'm not suggesting otherwise, it's just a mistake. But there's nothing in there that says the actual contracts, 10-year agreements to lease and operate the exhibition, which the municipality put on record to the farm loan board and to the society saying, we're not into that. There's no indication in those minutes that said those were brought. There are some references to the operation, and one may want to argue that questions could have been asked, which I would say the obligation was to present the agreements in advance so they could be circulated and the councillors could get advice from council on whether the contracts fit the mandate. The reason that language was put in the operating agreement, and I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again, is because council was worried about mission creep. They didn't want expansion of the contractual relationship with the provincial exhibition without coming back to council to look at and to align with what council was prepared to accept, considering that the mandate of the society is to run the RECC. So this was a compromise. That's why it's there. And you can go through the minutes yourself and reach your own conclusion. But at the end of the day, the society did not have the authorization for those contracts to be signed. Full stop. And if you don't believe that from me, you have a letter from council to the society or following advice that they received. Ms. Cooper was retained, and this came. Says the society has to determine and acknowledge that it is in breach of the operating agreement by not presenting the third-party contracts. So if you don't think what I'm telling you holds water, this letter says they weren't presented. So all the elements of the operating agreement, there was concession that they were not met. And then they set out a plan which was not acceptable to this council. And of course, throughout this, council is always aware that with presentation and a request, council can consider it. Council's not been asked to consider it. Council's dealing with this, and they learned of these contracts after requests for documentations that were signed. You can argue and parse out whether the contract should have been asked, was there smoke? What was going on? More questions have been asked. Could they have come? Which I say, the person who reports to the board as a senior officer has a fiduciary obligation, as an obligation central to the job to make sure the board or this council take out CEO and put in CAO. You have a responsibility to put everything on the table so the board doesn't have to play a game of where's Waldo. And that's, yeah, maybe they should have asked questions, but if they don't have the information, what questions do they ask? And for the grace of God, any of you serving in an outside committee stuck in this position where a signed lease is known to your senior employee and not brought forward to the board, it wouldn't be too hard in trying to judge what should have been asked, what could have been asked. I would suggest to you, a fair reading of the minutes is that, yes, on elements, if you know in hindsight that these agreements have been signed, the minutes reconcile, says, sure, these, of course, these relate to operating the place. Fair reading is also saying if all you think is in place is the perennial agreement and your event management, you know, how do you distinguish why the $2 million was given? Again, I don't go to the board meetings. I'm not pretending there's a right or wrong answer on that. I put in front of this council and in front of the board what the past executive fed back that council wanted to consider when they were asked to say, here's the chronology of what we think was happened. It's important. Make sure that you're comfortable with what's coming. They gave us the information and that was presented. And it was to the effect that everybody sort of knew what was going on. Doesn't matter. They weren't approved. They weren't authorized contracts. So just to go back in terms of the timing of the contracts, because I think this is important. So the default, the concerns about what impact the RECC relationship or the exhibition, what was going on with the RECC, and your CEO can speak to this better than I can. But one of the early signals that they were dealing with in November 24 is that society did not get its financial statements filed in time. And I'll turn to the CEO and to your Director of Corporate Services for correction if I'm wrong on this. But essentially, the municipality and the town each have to include the RECC statements as part of their consolidated statements. And the municipality has an obligation to file those consolidated statements by the end of September, and they were delayed because the RECC was delayed. And I understand, correct me if I'm wrong for anybody who goes to the meetings, that there was a chronic issue of what was going on with the financial statements and what was RECC, what was the exhibition. And I'm not sure that's been resolved, but I'm not here to speak to that. So that was the first default, if you recall. And the half of council who was elected in November, you may recall dealing with this at the early meeting, but you certainly would have recalled that default letters were going out. And there was concern, as I understand it, from the two CEOs, exactly what is the relationship? And so, under the operating agreement, the owners can ask for records or reports. And so in March of 2025, the two CEOs wrote saying they would request a report outlining the contractual relationship with NSP and other third parties and include copies of all contracts. If the report you reference to the provincial government covers this activity, that would suffice, but please include all of actual contracts regarding the NSP with this information for a full picture of the work. So what came back is this email. And these, so December 24 funding agreement, December 4th, 2023 funding agreement. Sorry, that's a joint letter. An annual board report, sponsorship agreement between the Department of Economic Development, sponsorship agreement between the Department of Agriculture. This is what I think is the CEDIF agreement, which much talked about. It's $2 million, and the CEO can talk to you about where that stands. That was for a 5-year deal. And again, on all of these agreements, there's one signature. So having received those agreements, another letter was sent. And it says, ongoing concerns that the town and county have with governance and reporting for the society. Outline the original operating agreement. Asking for clarity as to the financial statements between the RECC and the NSPE so that they can understand the financial impact. Looking for a written analysis that was provided as to the impact that whatever contract existed with NSPE was having on the RECC. It had not been provided. Reminding them that the scope was for professional services only. And with the current agreement for the operation of the grounds and a multi-year funding from the province, this process was ignored, putting the contract organization in violation. So this is a default letter that went out. You'll recall that because you would have been involved. And then a more formal default letter went out on March 28th. As the default, please observe the current mandate of the society is set out. This council approved this letter going. So they were asked to bring themselves in compliance. The analysis of the contract here. So for any, which is the one that was approved, and then these other sponsorship agreements and the discussion about them. And it says these agreements do not comply with the foregoing. So this was a detailed outline from the owners and a statement that the society, so March 4th, they were asked for all the contracts. And then the owners have to say, you've not provided them all. All right. So there was a meeting, and this is when the CEOs or CEO will confirm or otherwise met in person with the executive and handed this letter and had confirmation, what we saw in their response, that the contracts were never presented to the board. So they were asked for additional contracts. There was an extension to respond to the default letter. This email from your CEO to the chair. Expect you are making the aforementioned contracts available for all board members. So what this council is being told as of the end of April, so 7 weeks after they were requested, with respect to the request for additional contracts we have reviewed and most have previously been provided by the board to the municipality. We believe there are 4 additional contracts that were not included in the initial disclosure. The agenda for tomorrow's meeting includes legal advice for the board to get advice on whether they should turn over the contracts. And by their letter of April 30th, they did that. And so from March 4th until April 30th, the lease agreement. That's the Truro Raceway lease agreement was signed, had not been turned over. This agreement, which violates the operating agreement and the bylaws, Rawhide, the lease agreement with the exhibition or the farm loan board, and the event management agreement. So those are the agreements that came at the end of April, with the letter acknowledging that the society had been in default. In order to ensure that I was providing as accurate information as possible, we sent the chronology that I had drafted, which is a form of what you have in your package tonight. I've added some things in, like the Farm Loan Board letter of May 4th or 5th of 2022, because there's no mistake what municipality's position has been throughout. So I sent this to the chair saying, here it is. These are serious issues. Here's a chronology. Let me know if there's anything that you want to add or correct. And I provided you with the responses. I provided with you and to the interim board this response. So this information was before council. And this is where they're saying that the financial elements of the agreement were discussed on many occasions. And I know there's a narrative out there that says, well, if you go through the 2024 minute meetings, well, this stuff would have been known. Again, wasn't authorized, was in the scope of the society, wasn't within the scope of the board, wasn't within the scope of the CEO to sign any of these things. You made a decision to change the operating or the board in May. And then again, in October, this council made a decision and the operating agreement, which it was entitled to do. It was specifically negotiated at the time because there was concerns. The way it was structured, that both for the benefit of Truro and Colchester, that if either of them were uncomfortable with the current operating agreement and the governance structure, that either could give notice. And the reason was they didn't need to be this council, and this was Dan McDougall at the time, was a particular concern and advice to council that we don't want to be in a position where the community members in Truro or vice versa for Truro could basically hold us to a standstill agreement that we couldn't get out of. So there had to be that flexibility. And the intent of the operating agreement and the memorandum of understanding is to say, if we're not happy with the way things are going, either of us can trigger this and do a reset and look at this place and say, how do we want to govern this thing? And that's what council voted to do on October 29th. Same time, CEOs provided this letter, asked that it be distributed so the staff knew that they would be protected. And then a letter to the Farm Loan Board as of November 21st, with the authority of the two CEOs given by the then board as it existed to formally end the lease agreement, the 60 days notice, which they were contemplated under the two agreements. So that brings us here today and raises, these are not easy issues. This is not intended to point any fingers. This is intended to say a situation that was never intended from the very beginning when this society was constructed. It was intended to focus on the RECC. There was a compromise made in 23. The compromise was not honored and it was exceeded. There was mission creep. That's been acknowledged. I know that the interim board had different counsel. I know that Charles Thompson does not disagree with the analysis that we've given. As Cooper and the then board accepted, I've not heard otherwise. So as it stands today, this council's authority is to have the 23 amendment. They've never been asked for a further amendment and never been asked for the operating agreement to change at all. Because this has been going on for 4 years, I use in the phrase, and council will have to decide. I'm not the decider here. I'm not, George Bush would say, you're the deciders. I'm not the deciders. But it's been a very difficult relationship, which should never have gone down this road. Never have happened. Been a schism in it. And it took the society off the track that it was on of collaboration, where people didn't have to go out and hire sets of lawyers. They collaborate, and it took off track once they started getting into the provincial exhibition. Council wants to change the mandate. That's well within council's change. I don't know. Council put a motion on the floor tonight saying, no, we thought about it and we'd like to do the lease. See if we can recover it. That's your discretion. I think that's absolutely for you to do that. My understanding is council does not want to do that. Never has wanted to do that. But there's been a lot happened. And the concern is good people have been asked to lead on the board. And I'm sure they're frustrated. This council has been frustrated. But this standoff of effectively almost like three owners, Truro, Colchester, and the community has been going on a long time. This is not a new issue. And it's all around this issue. You can take it back to December of 21 when the RFP went in. Rightly or wrongly. I'm not here to debate the merits of it. There are people who can make the argument. And if a society went up today to run the exhibition, I know this council on any request, like any other community group, would hear them out, find a way of supporting it. Or this council could say, no, we got it wrong in 23 when we only let them do the event management. We should let them do the other. Again, those are things council can do. I'm here about the model of governance. And I think what we're looking at, and to take you to the action item, we, in light of the schism that's developed, in light of the frustration, in light of the concern this council has had over focus on the RECC, which is a $75–80 million building with a lot of community interest in terms of the aquatic community, the rink community, community users, the walkers. There's lots of people. That voice is still important, and the model that's being proposed is to have an advisory committee. But at the end of the day, there has to be, under this model, more focus on the management of the RECC and the fundraising. What's not in this memo that I think is inherent and probably should have been identified, we would suggest, based on council's direction, you decide. But if council is of the view that this is about the RECC and should never have been or shouldn't be about anything else, then the bylaws should be amended to remove what was added in 23. But again, that's council's decision. But what this model that we looked at, there were a number that we pointed out, and Halifax went through this with a lot of their independent operators of some of their recreational facilities. And there was concern about mission creep, about doing stuff that didn't make sense. And so they brought in a lot of heavy facilities management agreements and expectations. You have the Pictou County Wellness, which is a municipal board with a community advisory committee. And the community advisory committee can make sure the users of the RECC are involved, the aquatic, all those communities out there, Millbrook, whoever, people that have an interest can be involved and advise and collaborate. But at the end of the day, what this structure proposes is that the two owners need to focus on the management, that there be some improvement to the management structure so that the CEO would, on a regular basis, meet with the two CEOs. And you involve this citizen advisory committee. And again, implicit in this, and again, it's not our recommendation that you do it, but if based on previous council's discussion over this situation, you want to return to the original mandate of what existed until 23, then we would remove what was added in 23. So council has a number of options. Council could elect to retain the existing society structure with modified bylaws to address its governance concerns. operating agreement as it exists, will still terminate, and so it'd have to be a renewal of the operating agreement. I can tell you one of the concerns I have that is you read the operating agreement. Pretty clear, but it wasn't followed. So what do we write and how do you achieve that? That's an option. Council could elect to manage the RECC using a municipal services corporation, which is under section 60 of the Municipal Government Act. It's basically a way of doing a service agreement and gets filed with the registry, but the corporation essentially becomes a manager, or council could maintain the society. The first option is maintaining the society with modified bylaws to do the equal management team and the advisory. The third option listed is to maintain the society structure with a new operating agreement. So you continue to have 8 community members appointed from 4 from each council and 2 elected representatives on the council plus the CEO. So that's the third option, is essentially status quo, but try to create a new operating agreement. It's not been a good experience with the last one we council approved. So as I said at the beginning, this is a situation without precedent. It's a situation without, there's been a lot happen here. And I think council, now that it's given notice of termination of the operating agreement, has to give instructions. This council committee's been authorized, as well as January's been authorized to give approval on this. It doesn't have to wait, and it can't really wait until council end of January, because the operating agreement has been terminated according to Colchester's notice at the end of October. So decisions have to be made, which is why I think council authorized December and January to deal with this rather than convening a special council. So there's a lot of information. Regret the timing of it. I know there was a lot of information, but because there was a suggestion by members of the interim board that somehow you didn't get the full information from me, or they didn't, I wanted to make sure you had the full information. And I reached out. I was never responded to. I have no idea what deficiency they think they made, but I've working with council for a long time and would not give you information that you need. So you have it all there to read. Our recommendation is to proceed with maintaining the society with amendments to the bylaw to allow for 3 and 3 elected councillors from Truro, 3 elected councillors from Colchester, with a vibrant and diverse citizen advisory committee, and to include in the bylaw change a retraction of the focus on event management external to the RECC. I do this, I'm not a policymaker. That's my sense of where council's been in the discussion. Those are all your decisions to make. Happy to give you any background or answer any questions of clarification. And again, I regret the timing, but it was a lot to sift through and try to put in a manner that made sense and give you the full set of documents so you can look at it.
Thank you, Dennis. That was very thorough, and a lot of work went into that presentation, and I really, on behalf of our council, say thank you for all of that. Is anybody prepared to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Cooper, sorry, Councillor Johnson. Oops.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move the council committee approves that 3 municipal councillors be appointed to the society's current board at the next council meeting, and that those 3 municipal councillors in turn be directed to, at the earliest opportunity, 1, call a special meeting to propose amendments to the society's bylaws as discussed, and 2, propose that society's board adopt the updated management structure as discussed.
Thank you, and it's seconded by Councillor Cooper. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Ben.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Clarification on that. Dennis, what you just spoke on the motion, that is not what this motion is it not? I feel like you said a couple of things that
Yeah, so I think what we intended, you would have to choose one of those three options as discussed. And maybe we were inartful, and to fairness to Councillor Johnson, I think he intended option one to be implicit in that. That's what the three councillors are. That would be option is our recommendation. That's what the motion was intended to capture, Councillor Benoit, but it's a fair point for clarification.
So,
Councillor Johnson, can you indicate whether that's what you intended in your motion?
It is, and I'll read option one if you want, if you want me to read that.
No, I think that's fine. Dennis just read it and yeah, no, that's. So does that satisfy?
not really, sorry, it's just that there seems to be a lot more to what the motion is that Councillor Johnson said compared to what option one is, unless I'm completely misunderstanding, which I probably am.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. It's option one, so that's 3 and 3, which is what the recommendation is.
Okay.
But in order to do that, the members have to vote, have to convene a meeting. That's a special meeting. So this
the members
would be the current board members on the board as it exists now.
Okay,
The appointed people, the 3 and 3, and I think Doug McGinnis is remaining as interim chair.
okay,
Those people would meet. It's the members that have to amend the bylaws. This council doesn't amend it.
okay,
And so that would be, so what would happen is that council would appoint 3 members. There would have to be 3 councillors. Truro would do that. If Mr. McGinnis is still there, he would be a member attending a special meeting, and the bylaws would be amended to reflect the 3 and 3 ratio with the advisory committee.
okay.
Are you okay?
Yep.
All right, you want to turn your mic on there.
Oh, sorry.
I heard Dennis, did you want to say something more? No, okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Leggett.
Thank you. So if we go for this option tonight. I mean, we could talk about this thing all night, but anyways. Sitting through the Truro meeting this afternoon. They made a motion on a similar motion. But they are not ratifying that till January. So I guess what I'm concerned about is the last time we tried this on our own. We got pie in our faces. And I think what I saw this afternoon, Truro's kind of agreement with what we're talking about here tonight. But we were told that last time. And it didn't go well. So if we're going down this road, and this is when I asked for the original memorandum of a MOU, sorry. At some point, both entities have to come together. Is having us, Colchester County being able to control the sandbox, town of Truro could control the sandbox. We could very easily end up tonight, or if Truro had gone a different direction, with 2 totally different governance models. This got to stop.
Mhm.
However we go down the road from here, the RECC is failing by the day because our inactions. I know we're being rushed, and I don't like that. Getting 463 pages at 10 o'clock in the morning when I don't get home to 3 o'clock. And I know some Truro councillors didn't even get it till they saw it on the table this afternoon. We need far more time to analyze what's going on. We can all talk about shortfalls, what might have been done wrong. When I look at this holistically, in the short time I've been here, I'll point the fingers at whoever was involved for not paying attention. This been going on for 3 or 4 years. Nothing new, as Dennis said.
Mhm.
It's been allowed to happen, and there was a whole lot of people in that board, right, wrong, or indifferent, that allowed this to carry on the way it did. I'm not opposed to doing what we're doing here tonight, but very, very quickly, where we're going needs to go very quickly, but taking all the angles of what's best for Colchester County, whether it's the town and the county, whatever. But us having power, town having power, not working. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm along the same line as Councillor Leggett. Who's gonna want to deal with us after the fact, you know, because this has been such a black mark on all of us. And why are we in the business of running a business? What is it comes down to now, if we're gonna have more people on this board than our community members, we're running a business essentially, and we have no business doing that. I don't know. I know mistakes were made. I'm not denying any of that. I just don't know where we go from here. You know, to me, the NSPE and that contract was a good fit because the RECC is busiest from October to May. And then May, June, July, the summer into the fall is when the exhibition property is busy. So, you know, that was a perfect fit. There's been a lot of stuff disclosed, you know, out in the public that we haven't heard here at the table that we should have heard or known about before it was released in the public. That's discouraging. That's, you know, there's a lot of information out there, and I'm still, my head's trying to devour it all and figure out what's right and what's wrong. I was recently told the roof leaks every time it rains. Is that an us problem? Do we look after the capital maintenance, or, you know, who looks after that kind of thing? Why has it gone on for 2 years? You know, anyway, you know, I know I said it, the mistakes were made. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that there were mistakes made, but when you're trying to plan an event of the magnitude that we've seen, you know, I don't get it. No, I do understand. Everything's of a time sensitive manner. When you're trying to attract these bigger events, you don't get the luxury of waiting until council meets again. So that's concerning. But I guess my question is, at this point, who owns the Nova Scotia Stampede? Can anyone answer that?
Dennis, are you able to comment on that?
I've not seen any contract around who owns it. I know that there's a contract of Rawhide Entertainment, which is signed. My understanding is the society signed as most of the related contracts, and those are things that have to be figured out, but I don't know. I'm not aware of any, I have no idea. Nobody's turned over any documentation on ownership of the Stampede per se. I understand that probably would be the Farm Loan Board. I'm assuming maybe the province. I don't know.
So if I can follow
Sure.
up, I had asked at this table for a conversation to happen with the province. Greg Morrow stated publicly that he had not heard anything about this when this operating agreement was blown apart. So I think if we had had that conversation, would that have not untangled us from something and avoided all of this? Again, I can't state enough that we should not be in a business of running a business.
So council, notice was given by the board to end the relationship with the lease, and
Mhm.
the lease and operating agreement were not authorized for the society.
Mhm.
The society had no legal authority to be doing that. So in terms of the engagement, the formal notices were sent. And I know the CEO has been asking for meetings with the Farm Loan Board to manage that process, and has a meeting scheduled this week, I think, with the two CEOs and the Farm Loan Board to follow that process. But council never, and no councillor that I'm aware of, ever put a motion on the table to say, we want to operate the provincial exhibition. So the direction was to give notice of the end of the lease and the operating. Doesn't follow that council can't be supportive of the Stampede through other delivery. If someone wants to take that on, the province, whatever. But council made the decision they did not want to be involved. And again, no councillor, motion, no action, that this municipality be involved in managing the provincial exhibition grounds or the stampede or the lease. So all of those things would have to come to Councillor Patton in order to say this is council's will. You have nothing on the record to say this is council's will, and to the opposite is a standing motion. So I know there's the discussion that's pending with the Farm Loan Board. You know, there were a lot of off-ramps, and yeah, there's an awkwardness when things have been signed and committed that you have to catch up with and then try to manage after the fact. And no advice was ever gained from this council when those 2024 contracts were signed. Perhaps had they, maybe council would have gone a different direction then. But yeah, it's hard, you know, it's easy to say, well, we signed all this and, you know, that's your status quo, but that's not what council's got on the record. And my understanding from council's discussion is there's been concern about the impact and a recalibration to go back to managing the RECC. Again, it's council's decision. If any councillor says we want an expanded mandate to include the stampede or other, it's not my jurisdiction. That's for you to put on the table or any other councillor to put on the table. So the actions that were taken were at the direction of council. Catching up with an awkward situation where you've got that many agreements, everybody agrees, nobody saw until after they were signed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Benwell, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to express my appreciation for the effort that's gone into preparing this document under a tight time frame. Dennis, I know you've been nonstop with this, like you said, over the years. But with the complexities surrounding this topic, I feel I need more time to review and have necessary questions answered. As Councillor Leggett said, these pages that came today, and I did ask to have this prior. And I know it's on me to have a full-time job through the day, but there's no way that I could go through those documents today and then come here this evening. So, and I realized that some of those, or a lot of those documents were mentioned over the last few years, but honestly, what we've gone through with this, it's a lot. And as co-owners of the rec facility, I believe it's essential for us to have a joint meeting with the other owners to discuss the next steps in governance matters. I was at that meeting this afternoon. I feel like although some of what they've discussed is similar to what's being discussed tonight, there does seem to be some discrepancies. And I also think it would be beneficial to have a meeting with the senior staff. I said that before. I was open to having a meeting with the CAO to figure out and try to figure this out, because there just seems to be so much out there. As I hear and read about information over the last month, it just brings up more questions and uncertainties that challenge some of my previous decisions, unfortunately. While we'll never satisfy everyone with our choices, it is crucial for me to feel confident in the rationale and to ensure that I have all the pertinent facts. And I want to say that I'm not saying that, Dennis, you're not giving us the pertinent facts. I've always trusted in you. I just feel like there's just been so much. There's definitely some misinformation circulating out there on social media, as well as information that's in closed sessions that's not able to be made public, highlighting the need for improved communication and transparency on all fronts. Additionally, there are outstanding maintenance issues at the RECC that have been taken, that have not been taken care of efficiently over the years, leading to dissatisfaction among patrons, staff, and taxpayers. This falls on us as owners, as well as the board and management level, and needs to be taken care of right away. And when I say right away, I realize there's some items that are very expensive, and obviously I don't mean that. The facility was originally established as a recreational center, but has since expanded to host various events such as concerts, U17 tournaments and curling, much of which has been made possible by Matt and his team. Then came the Stampede, exhibition, Rib Fest, and so much more, but we need to make sure all parties are on the same page and everything is followed properly, such as contracts, so there's no more misunderstandings. Looking ahead, I hope to continue to collaborate and with provincial partners as well to bring more of these amazing events. The success of these events has greatly benefited our communities, but we must lay a solid groundwork first. We need to make sure the RECC is not falling behind while supporting the other events. I believe that facilitating a collaborative environment where all parties can come together to resolve differences is essential for the common good with both owners and senior staff. Implementing internal controls will enhance our governance structure and ensure accountability with individuals that may be out of line. I realize that tonight's discussion on governance is critical for the success and future of the RECC, as well as our employees, staff, patrons, and constituents. I recognize that many discussions remain on the table and the public is seeking answers, and it's my hope that these conversations will take place in the coming weeks. I do have a couple of questions as well, mainly from today's meeting. And I'm not sure who can answer these. Maybe I can ask Dennis. So with the society ending in January, what happens with the contracts?
The society doesn't, under this proposal, society doesn't have to be a formal wind down. And so whatever contracts the society entered into, and I'm not sure we know them all,
Okay,
because there's employees, there's rawhides, I'm assuming there's other suppliers. We have no idea. We don't have a full inventory, but the society will continue. Under this proposal, the society would continue as a corporate entity with a new board structure. So legally, the employees would still be hired on February 1st, still employees of the society. Contracts would still continue to be honored. The only reason we put the municipal corp option on the table really was in case there's an issue with the registered joint stock companies, because it's just municipal appointments. I don't anticipate it, but we just put it in there as a caution so that we'd essentially replicate the 3-and-3 model with the city advisory under the municipal corp if there's an issue with the amendments to the society itself. If that happened, then everything must be assigned over the municipal corp and we pick up. There'd be a continuity that way. But the society continues to exist. And so under this proposal, there would be amendments to the bylaws to create the new board structure, and business would continue, employees would continue. But these changes would be introduced.
the new governance changes would be
Right,
introduced.
but it would still be the society.
Okay.
Still, the society continues to exist under the recommendation.
Okay,
So all that's happening is sort of in internal restructuring, who sits on the board and what the role of the community is. Currently, the board is 8 and 4, 4, 4, 2, 2 elected officials, 4 from the community on each side, so 8 in total plus the 4. Under this proposed model, there would be 3 elected, and a citizen advisory committee that would inform the management board.
so there wouldn't be any citizen reps on the board, that would be a separate,
That's under this proposal.
Right.
But as we indicated, under option 3, you could maintain and cancel all your options. You could say, no, I want to do this structure, but we want to operate. All those options have been outlined for you to think about and say, no, this is the right model, but what messed up is the operating agreement. And we'd have, if that's where council ended up, we'd have to give a lot of thoughts to what's in that operating agreement, clear restriction and contract authority, and try to beef up what we thought was clear direction in the first place.
okay, and continue, sorry. So if the contracts will still continue, does that mean that, because the Stampede has already been announced for the dates for this year, so does that mean that and all the other events will still continue, whether it lands on the municipality or?
That's what has to be figured out by a new process, new board. Again, you inherit a situation. The operating agreement did not contemplate that the society would be liable to any of those things,
Okay.
but it is.
Right.
And so now we have to figure out what that is and advise on how to manage that, whether the farm loan board takes that over, whether the farm loan board offers an indemnity, whether we go to the perennial model and they hire the society to do the event management in that form. Whatever it is, that's part of the discussion that your CEO has been trying to arrange a meeting and to start to have those discussions.
Also, and I know this has been talked it up, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear on it, because it also came up this afternoon about in regards to the contracts. So one confusion that I have, and that's been out there, was that contracts were signed without board's acknowledgement, but then it was said that the minutes that were documented, put out there, show that the board was actually knowing about it. But now, from this afternoon, it was mentioned that the CEO was supposed to come back to the board. So it was put out there and it was mentioned, but nothing was, I guess, completely documented because he was supposed to come to the board. Can you clarify that, or does?
Yeah, so I every day I thank the stars, but I don't do social media.
Right.
I have no
I
presence.
can understand that.
People can find me at 10 Church Street, however and often they want. So that's my fundamental life rule. I don't do social media. In general, what my understanding is, through those who do, is they're pointing to those elements that I set out in the chronology. So what I said, okay, I didn't do it. I asked an associate in the office, you read these without bias and tell me elements where the potential operation or lease of the exhibition grounds might be inferred or read into the minutes. And those are the ones that picked out in 24. What's not in the minutes, either in 23 or 24, is a motion that a 10-year lease agreement with the provincial exhibition be signed and that the CEO be authorized to sign the contract. And the operating agreement would have required, if that were to happen, the operating agreement required that the lease be sent out in advance with sufficient time for this council to review.
Right.
So none of those things happened. So as I understand the social media digest going on is, well, you read the minutes and the sort of the board knew. And again, you make of that what you want when you read the minutes. I gave them to you. They're there in full for you to make your judgment. My point is, doesn't matter. Nobody had the authority to sign them. But if you were going to sign them, the board should have at least passed a motion saying, yeah, we approve it. None of that happened. And that's what the April 30th, 2025 from the then board acknowledged. So, yeah, so there's I think a couple of narratives going on. Councilor Brenron, Deputy Mayor, sorry, I should be going through you more. But I think there's a couple of narratives. One is saying, well, look, if you read the minutes and they ought to know. That goes back to my caution. It's easy to judge when you know after the fact that these contracts exist, what the minutes or the communication to board members should understand. You might understand information differently if you knew that 2 10-year agreements were just signed, right? And you have to look at this objectively, is a board member hearing that there's $2 million flowing into the operation? Is that incompatible with an event management contract? I don't know. It's potential money. Is it incompatible with a lease operation? No, but either of those could be true depending on what you know. And as again, this is not a game of Where's Waldo, where board members should be left to figure out what is in place, what's been signed, and what exactly is going on here. Now, there'll be some that would stand in front of you and say, well, you know, that minute says that, and someone should have asked questions and you're asleep at the switch. I'm not here to make those judgments. I'm just saying, I know that your CEO has a responsibility and your directors, I do, to put everything that we know in front of you that informs the decision that this council has to make. And the same with the board. And a board sitting in May or April of 2024 be presented with the two agreements that were rejected by the municipality might have tweaked and said, there's a problem here. Right? Because we went through this 2 years ago. Those guys on one Church Street, guys and gals on one street, Church Street, lost their minds over this. Maybe we should talk. That didn't happen. And that's why the operating. So, yeah, I know there's a narrative out there that says, look at this minute and look at that minute. And I just say, for the grace of God, as a board member, don't have all the information. Where do you go and what do you figure out? And yeah, it's a mistake. It was a big mistake. All I know is, according to the April 30th last board member, they acknowledged all these contracts were signed without being seen. And I know that they're all off-site bill. That's what I know, council.
Thank you. And I guess that my,
They are, sorry, but they are still binding on the society and we have to figure that out.
and the more that more came out of today's conversation in town council, which I know you weren't there to hear, but that's kind of where my clarity was asked on that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Martell.
Thank you. Certainly, where I was the appointed rep on the rec board, coming into that role as a new counselor, it was something that I had gone into looking forward to working with the community. It was noticed early on that the meetings were infused with tension and discord with how the board was working at that point in time. I acknowledge that people have been hurt by these decisions that we have made here at council, namely 16 community members who have served on that board that have been dismissed over the past year and disrespected through our processes and our decisions at this table. People are concerned about their jobs. And I am sorry for whatever role that I have played in making anyone feel disrespected or that they are not valued. And I have concern for all of the jobs that are involved with this, as well as the time that our community has put in to helping run a facility that we own as the municipalities. I've sat here at meetings and I've shared that the interim board was doing what it was asked to do, following a timeline and processes that the board had voted on and approved as a whole. The release of our letter saying that we were ceasing the operating agreement on the eve of the under-17 World Hockey Championships was extremely poor timing and damaging for our reputation and demonstrating to our community more broadly that we may not have acted in the best interests of the community, in my opinion. And I also believe that council is entitled to be fully informed, and thank you, Dennis, for making sure that we have background information. But I'm also feeling that it's my belief that there's correspondence that has come through our council since the RECC board held a meeting on November 3rd that we may not have had an opportunity yet to share with us council, and that there may be other significant details that were shared with the RECC board from the chief finance officer that we have not had a chance to be advised at council on as well. Throughout this whole year of sitting on that RECC board, it has been evident that communication has not been done well on the parties of the municipalities in communicating with the board And many of our discussions have been hampered here at this table with in camera from the rec and in camera from this table, and not being able to have full and transparent communication at every chance when decisions were being made. So basically at 10 o'clock this morning, receiving a package that was multiple pages long with multiple tabs and being faced with a decision tonight to make, I am not prepared to vote for an option. And I would like to see communication improved with our municipalities together and with the community as we move forward, looking at the opportunities for the rec and the Nova Scotia exhibition grounds. And I will also end that I am 100% committed to seeing that stampede happen in Colchester County next year. It is valuable in our community, as are most of the events that were hosted in both places. And I hope that our council can find a way through to make sure that we are acting in the best interest of our community as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I couldn't be more proud of you, Councillor Martel, and what you just said. I couldn't agree more. I can't support this because I too want to see something happen with some of these bigger events that we owe to the county, to our community to continue with. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Benoit?
Sorry, I know it's my third time speaking. Is there any? I worry about the rec staff. And I'm just wondering, is there any assurances that we can give to the rec staff that there will not be any layoffs or anything of employees or management during this governance transition? Or maybe that's part of conversations that CAO is having with them.
To our CAO.
Thank you very much. So through the chair, actually to all of council. The chair of the board, myself and CAO Dolter met with senior staff. We spent a couple hours and obviously made sure they were aware of all the correspondence, because everybody was not aware of all the correspondence that was sent from the municipalities to not just the board, but to staff as well. We had that discussion. Essentially, the intention here is obviously the rec as it stands, day-to-day business will continue, and all of those individuals involved will continue to do the things they're doing. The conversation with the Farm Loan Board will determine what happens on anything that would be occurring on an exhibition grounds or at the raceway. And that will fall into their bailiwick, and we're having that conversation starting next week. They in fact said, can we have a couple of weeks to think about what we want to have happen? And so the start of that conversation is just going to happen, and I can't speak to where that will go. But certainly from a perspective of the full intention and the full communication in the meeting with senior staff was that those who work at the rec will continue to work at the rec, because the rec business will continue to happen. And then as far as governance, we communicated that the start of that conversation was here tonight, but also that the conversation with regards to what happens at the exhibition grounds is now a conversation with the Farm Loan Board, because they will have decisions to make themselves, and I don't know where that will go. So certainly from a perspective of those who work at the rec center doing rec activities, there is going to be no change on that front. Those who work at the exhibition grounds, it will determine on what happens with the farm.
Okay, and that's good to hear. And I just like to see us, if we are co-owners with, which we are with the rec, that we start having some more joint meetings, that we're all on the same level, than having, like, we had 3 different letters going out and people were just completely confused by that. But anyway, I'll end there. I know I've talked too much. Thank you.
Councillor Weatherby, please.
Thank you, Deputy. What I would like to say is we got an awful lot of information today, as was stated before. I myself have not had a chance to go through it to the extent that I would like to, and I'm sure there are several others who haven't as well. I think we have to do something to reset. To me, the rec is our primary concern. We have a lot of money invested there. We have a lot of people invested there. It's for the community. It's for the members. So again, that is my number one focus, and that's where I think our priority should be. The exhibition grounds have long been a thorn for anybody that's lived in Bobble Hill, I've known. It's a fabulous facility, and it's certainly had over the years, a lot of people tried to do something with it that would make sense. I personally don't want to be one of those people because the past has shown that nobody has been successful running that. Now, given recent events, there have been some good events come out of there, but we don't own the provincial exhibition ground. That's something that belongs to the government, and I think that should stay with the government. If they want to carry on, and if they want our help to carry on, I'm not against that. But I think what we need right now is we need some more time to read and digest what we were given. And I guess it's gonna mean another meeting. And it's not the time of year to have more meetings, but I think we have to do it. I think we have to certainly get on board with the town of Truro and make sure we're going in the same direction. One of the ways to do it, quite possibly, is with fewer people sitting together and talking, because if we have 12 and if they have 7, I believe it is, that's a lot of people to try to get a decision out of when you're looking at 2 different ownerships trying to make a decision. So I think we have to take some time, reset here, figure out what we want to do and proceed. But again, my number one concern is the rec center. There's been a lot of time and effort put into that, and I want to see that be the best it can be. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cooper.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I certainly agree with Councillor Weatherby. If people want to take some time, I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with where we are right now with this motion, but if the council wants to take more time, that's, that's okay with me. They can do that. I'm not going to. I'm just a little confused at how we always seem to be put in the role of bad guy. We're trying to correct all the things that are done wrong, and yet somehow we're the bad guys. We're the ones that don't support anything. Like somehow it's being put out there that, we don't support things because we want to get rid of these contracts. I'm not saying we don't support things. We're saying these are bad contracts and we want to get rid of them. I still support them, stampede and everything else, but these are terrible contracts and we gotta get rid of them. So these things being tied together just drive me crazy because those things aren't tied together. And we need to get rid of those contracts, and then we can, council can decide themselves what they want to support and what they don't want to support and everything else. Council can decide if they want to. I'd say leave the motion on. If council doesn't want to support it tonight, then let it go and go to another meeting, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
Counselor Leggett, please.
Madam Chair, to everybody, I guess. Even if this motion is approved tonight, it still comes back in January 11th, right? Or whatever the next.
Council, the end of January.
Yeah, that's the date of the meeting.
So through the chair, so this committee has council approval. So if this is on the table tonight as your motion to move forward, now as per if what is the motion on the table tonight has some pieces that need to come together, including then a meeting of the board in order to basically ratify and make changes. But tonight's meeting does have the authority of council, so a vote tonight effectively could put this in motion and not have to come back to council.
Okay. In light of that, Truro has taken theirs back to their January meeting, which I believe is the 11th. I would suggest that we take 3 people from here and see if we can get 3 people from the town, councillors, to have a group meeting over Christmas. I'm willing to partake in it. And see if we can come to see what everybody's on the same page and come back to that January meeting, because Truro is already heading to that January meeting. So if we decide something here tonight, they come up with something different in January, we're back to square one again. Thank you.
Mayor Blair.
Thank you. According to the agreement, we do have the right to make a decision as the municipality of the county of Colchester. We do have to move forward, and we need to have an operating organization in place and done so that we can continue with the operation of our facility. This is our facility. It is the facility that we want to be, as has been stated at the table, the absolute best it can be. I think passing this motion is a step in the right direction because we need to have an organization in place. I listened to part of the Truro meeting tonight as well. I believe that I do, however, want to put an amendment to the motion on the table. I move that instead of saying 3 municipal councillors, you say 3 municipal elected officials. Because if you have councillors only, then that eliminates the mayor from sitting at the table. And that was a question that was asked at the Truro Town Council for anyone who was listening, for those of you who actually attended the meeting.
What was that look for?
You would have heard that statement. I listened online.
Yep.
But didn't attend.
Excuse me, but what was that look for?
What do you mean, councillor?
The look that you just gave me
Rolling
when you
your
said
eyes?
that.
For those of you who.
I'm sorry, but
For those of you who attended.
We'll have to go
It was the way
through,
you said
excuse me, have to go through the chair, please. if
Yes,
you want to speak.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Point of order. I did have the floor and you recognized me for the floor.
So there is a motion to amend to change.
Yes,
elected
I move
councillors.
that the motion be amended to say 3 municipal elected officials.
3 municipal elected officials. Do we have seconder for that? No seconder?
So does that mean then that council says the mayor is not allowed to be on this board?
Dennis, can you comment on that when we say elected officials? Or councillors, sorry?
I don't think that was our intent to exclude it, but that's what it says in the councilors, right? The MGA says councillor means a council member other than the mayor. So if that wording stood, then that would exclude the mayor. That wasn't our thinking when we put it together, but that's how it has to be read. So to the mayor's point, if it's elected officials, then that broadens it to councillor or mayor.
So councillor Johnson's motion still stands. You don't want to amend the motion, do you? Your motion to change that from councillors? Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. Are you ready for the vote? Got the question? Question has been called. Tracy's gonna put the
Oh.
Yeah.
Could you reread it?
you think you can get it up on the screen? It's not working, it's frozen.
Read it.
Sure.
The council committee approves that 3 municipal councillors be appointed to the society's current board at the next council meeting, and that those 3 municipal councillors in turn be directed to, at their earliest opportunity, 1, call a special meeting to propose amendments to the society's bylaws as discussed, and 2, propose that the society's board adopt the updated management structure as discussed.
Thank you, and we had a seconder, which was Councillor Cooper to that, so. Are you ready for the question? Question has been called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay.
Nay.
Can you raise your hands, please, the nays? 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm a yay, aye.
Can I have
I'm a
the-
yes.
Anybody have the nays again?
So,
Put your
so
hands
we
up.
have Benoit, Patton, Richardson, Leggett,
And Martel.
and Martell.
So 6-5 motion passes.
So the motion passes. We have a 6-5 vote. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the great discussion we've had on this. And as we've said right from the get-go, our interests are in making our recreational entertainment facility the best that it can be. And I think we're moving in the right direction to do that. The next item is the information items. And it's the Norrie land request.
Deputy Mayor,
Sorry.
I'd like to declare conflict.
Okay, thank you. We have noted that Councillor Weatherby has recused himself. That's just information. So are there any questions on the Norrie land request? Any questions, any concerns? Everybody's okay with that? Okay. And then we have the well drilling septic program for information. Council has asked for staff to bring back some information about this item. Any questions? Thank you to staff for putting this information note together. Councillor Cooper, please.
So just to clarify, at this point in time, there's no indication of doing anything. This is information.
Information.
Correct. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that the information would come back to council so they're aware of the municipal units of what they're doing. And if there is a desire to move ahead with a program, then this at least gives some opportunity to say, how do we want to proceed? And so there's more work going to be done by staff, but we wanted to get the information in front of council so you could see what some of the options were that were out there. So our intention is to come back with something for consideration and be very specific to options moving forward.
So that's gonna happen.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, there's nothing else on that. We'll move to the director's report, community development. Thank you, Paul and staff, for putting a very detailed report together. Any questions for our director?
That's what they just told me. I thought it was annoying.
No,
Tell me
went-
well.
we
Okay,
did
sorry.
both,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you, Paul. No questions, I guess. We'll keep moving right along. There's nothing for in camera. So I guess I look for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Patton. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
We've got a new baby joining our council. So, yes.
Well, she is. Oh.
Thank you.
Hmm?